My name is Maya Daniels. I'm 27 years old. And someone I once called my best friend tried to destroy me. 2 months ago, I had what most people would call a stable life. I shared an apartment with my closest friend, Tessa, someone I'd lived with for 3 years and trusted with everything. We worked at the same firm, laughed over cheap wine on Friday nights, and confided in each other about everything from work drama to broken hearts. When I went through a rough breakup, Tessa was there. I cried, and she listened. I was vulnerable. Stupidly so. And during one of those low nights, I shared private photos with someone I thought loved me. He didn't. And when it ended, I deleted everything. Or at least I thought I did. Weeks later, I woke up to messages, dozens of them. Screenshots. Links. Reposts. My photos were all over the internet. But this wasn't some random hacker. No. I recognized the edit style, the email headers, and even the exact caption one of them used, a caption I once heard in my own living room. It wasn't a stranger who leaked my photos. It was Tessa. I grew up in a household where reputation was everything. My mother ran the local women's council, always impeccably dressed, always performing perfection. My father, a retired military officer, raised me to believe that dignity is your most valuable asset. Lose that, and you lose everything. We weren't cold, just measured. There was love, but it was layered under expectations. When I got a B in school, I was told I could do better. When I got promoted, my mother asked if I'd worn something appropriate for the announcement. Appearances mattered. Image mattered. And emotions? They were to be managed in private. By the time I hit my 20s, I had learned the art of control. My career was steady, my relationships minimal, and my social media, clean, curated, nothing revealing. So when I met Tessa during my grad program, she was a breath of fresh air. She was loud, chaotic, artistic, everything I wasn't allowed to be growing up. We clicked instantly. She moved into my apartment after her housing fell through, and within months, we were inseparable. She was messy, but magnetic. The kind of person people couldn't help but orbit around. I think part of me envied her freedom. Tessa knew everything about me, my fears, my parents' judgment, my breakup. Especially the breakup. My ex, Jordan, was charming but calculated. He loved bombastic gestures, expensive dates, dramatic fights, the highs and lows. Tessa thought he was thrilling. I found him exhausting. When I ended things, it was over a quiet dinner. I told him I needed peace, but peace came at a price. I cried to Tessa that night, cried about how ugly I felt, how unlovable I seemed, how I wished I could just disappear. And I told her about the photos, private, intimate photos I'd sent Jordan in a vulnerable moment. I wasn't ashamed. I trusted him. At least I did. Once, Tessa poured wine, hugged me, said, "You're braver than me." We watched reality TV. I thought I was safe. It started with a DM. I was getting ready for work, black trousers, neutral makeup, hair tied back, the usual Maya armor. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed a message request on Instagram. From a name I didn't recognize. I clicked, there it was. A screenshot. Blurry but unmistakable, my face, my body, the photo I'd sent Jordan. Another followed. Then another. Different angles. Captions beneath each one. Guess who's been hiding behind her classy image? She's not so perfect now, is she? I froze. I stared at my phone, barely breathing. My ears rang. Within minutes, my inbox was flooded. Anonymous comments. Trolls. The kind of hate that feels feral. My heart pounded as I tried to figure out where they were coming from. I called Jordan in a panic. He sounded groggy. Swore on his life he didn't leak anything. Sounded scared, too. And genuinely confused. I believed him, because as I scrolled through the leaks, I noticed something chilling. One of the photos, a mirror selfie, had never been sent to Jordan. I'd only shown it to one person. Tessa. She'd been sitting beside me when I was debating whether to send it. I'd asked if I looked confident or try hard. She laughed and said, "You look like someone who finally knows her power." She asked to see more. I trusted her. I trusted her. That morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't tell my parents. I shut all the blinds, locked every door, and sat on the cold kitchen floor with my phone shaking in my hands. I texted her. Me, Tessa, we need to talk. Did you see what's happening? Tessa, scene 9:12 a.m., no reply. Later that night, she came home like nothing happened. Hair messy, smelling of whiskey. "What's with the energy?" she joked, setting her keys down. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She smirked. "You know, the internet moves fast. This'll be old news in a week." That was when I knew the betrayal wasn't an accident. This was premeditated. She didn't just leak my photos. She set me up to break, and wanted to watch it happen. I didn't leave my room for 3 days. The world outside felt hostile, like every sidewalk glance hid judgment, every notification might carry another blow. I deleted every app. Shut off my phone. Let calls go unanswered. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, and worse, I didn't know who I was anymore. This wasn't just about photos. It was about trust. About humiliation. About being reduced to a body and a scandal. Tessa kept living her life like nothing happened. I'd hear her in the kitchen laughing on calls, playing music, walking past my door without a flicker of guilt. She didn't even bother pretending anymore. I tried to stay invisible. I showered at 3 a.m. Ate quietly. Avoided mirrors, but on the fourth day, something inside me cracked. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying my own face. Not the viral girl. Not the scandal. Just Maya, raw, puffy-eyed, quietly burning. I whispered aloud, "You are still you. They don't get to rewrite you." That day, I packed a bag and left. I moved in with my cousin Layla, who lived across town in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment above a bakery. She didn't ask questions. Just opened the door, hugged me, and said, "Whatever happened, you're safe here." I started writing everything down, every message, every screenshot, every strange comment. I created a private folder and labeled it, Truth. I wrote daily journal entries about my emotions, my memories, the days leading up to the betrayal. Not because I knew what I'd do with them, but because I needed a record of who I was before I was erased. I got a therapist. I started running. I made a new email and reached out to a lawyer. My savings were low, but my resolve was growing. Then came the job loss. My manager at the creative agency called. "We've had some reputational concerns," she said, her voice tight. "Your name is being associated with some sensitive online material," and unfortunately, I hung up before she finished. That night, I sat on Layla's balcony, watching cars blur past below. My life had been flattened in a week. My job. My image. My peace, and still, Tessa lived freely. She posted curated selfies and tweeted quotes about loyalty and women supporting women. She went on podcasts and smiled through every lie. She wasn't just cruel. She was calculated, and I realized, I could either disappear or dismantle her. That was the moment the old Maya died, the one who apologized, who stayed silent to keep peace, who let herself be erased. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to rise, methodically, quietly, powerfully. 3 weeks after I left Tessa's apartment, I created a fake Instagram account. It wasn't for revenge. Not YET. Was to observe her, the comments, the DMs. I needed to understand the ecosystem that protected her. The curated lie of her empowered woman persona, where she posed as a self-love advocate, all while privately destroying mine. She was gaining followers off my silence, but silence is only powerful when it's a choice. I started to build something new in secret, not a platform, but a message. I spoke to the lawyer again. We discussed digital privacy laws, civil claims, the risks of public exposure. He warned me, lawsuits take years, and Tessa's trail was cleverly covered. I didn't flinch. I didn't want the courts to give me power. I wanted to take it back. Myself. That's when I got the idea. I created a private site. Just one page. Password protected. Clean. No branding. It would be the drop zone. Over the next 10 nights, I compiled everything. Text threads where she joked about soft launching the leak. Photos of her opening my phone without consent. Voice notes she'd accidentally left recording after one of our arguments, where she muttered, "She has no idea what's coming." I cross-referenced timestamps. Pulled old emails. Found a deleted file in my iCloud trash, one of the images she had forwarded to herself before wiping the evidence. Every detail had a place. No melodrama. Just fact after fact after fact. Then I wrote an open letter, not a sob story. Not a takedown. A manifesto about digital consent, friendship betrayal, and the violence of exposure. I ended it with, "I was someone she called a sister. And she still chose to sell me for attention. I don't want pity. I want people to see her for who she really is." I didn't publish it. Not yet. But for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. I wasn't just healing. I was evolving. The next morning, I logged into my real account, the one I hadn't touched in a month. I posted a black screen caption, "You'll know everything soon. I'm not afraid anymore." The comments exploded. Tessa DM'd me within minutes. "Hey love, everything okay? You've been kinda quiet. Miss you." I didn't respond. Not yet, because power isn't in reacting. It's in controlling the moment. By the time Tessa's birthday rolled around, I had everything in place. She'd planned a massive event, rooftop, branded cocktails, influencer guest list. The theme? Empowered women empower women. The irony nearly made me laugh. I RSVP'd yes, not because I forgave her. Because I wanted front row seats for her reckoning. 3 days before the party, I reactivated my close friends list on Instagram, handpicked with care. Mutuals. People in our circle. People who thought they knew what had happened, but had Only heard her version. I posted a story, a countdown with the words, "Sometimes the truth takes time." The next morning, the site went live, but still private. Only one link led to it, a bit.ly embedded into my Instagram bio.no post. No announcement, just quiet, steady tension. That night, I sent Tessa a voice memo, looking forward to Saturday. Just wanted to say thanks, everything you've taught me about control, visibility, and narrative. See you soon. She responded with heart emojis and, so proud of how far you've come. She had no idea how far I was about to go. The plan was precision, not chaos. At the party, I wore the same dress I'd worn in one of the leaked photos. I didn't plan to, it just felt right. Reclaiming it. On my own terms, Tessa squealed when she saw me. Hugged me like we were still sisters. She introduced me to a few people with, "She's been off the grid but she's back." I smiled politely. Let her have her stage. Midway through the night, when the speeches began, I asked her assistant if I could say a few words. Tessa looked surprised, but nodded. "She's part of my story," she announced to the crowd. "Maya's been there since day one." I stepped forward, took the mic, paused, then said, "I want to thank Tessa. Truly. She taught me that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who need an audience more than they need integrity." Laughter rippled, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. I continued, "She once told me that visibility is everything. That silence can be spun. That image is power. So tonight, I'd like to show you an image." A few people raised their phones, thinking I was about to give a speech about resilience or friendship. I pulled out my own phone. Tapped the link in my bio. Read out the title of the page, "Consent Isn't Optional, My Story." And then I walked away from the mic. Phones started pinging. Screens glowing. I didn't have to say another word, the site spoke for me. Inside it, screenshots. Voice clips. A clear, timestamped breakdown. I watched Tessa scroll with her perfectly manicured hand, her expression didn't shift. That was her skill, staying composed. But I saw the twitch in her jaw. The panic beneath her stillness. People weren't angry. Not at first, they were confused. Hurt. Then furious. One of her brand sponsors was there. So was her manager. An editor from a wellness magazine. 2 guests left quietly. Another asked her, "Is this real?" Tessa didn't answer. She turned to me. "You planned this?" she hissed. "No," I replied. "I prepared this." Then I left. I didn't need applause. I had my closure. The morning after the party, I woke up to a phone vibrating non-stop. Headlines. Mentions. Screenshots. The site had gone viral, but not in a dramatic, overnight scandal way. It spread like a slow burn. Friends of friends. Influencer circles. Feminist forums. A whisper that turned into a roar, because what I'd shared wasn't just receipts, it was a mirror. People didn't just see what Tessa had done to me. They saw what had been done to them. My ex did this too. My friend turned on me after I outshined her. This is why women don't come forward. That morning, I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't need to. The internet did what it always does, dissected, analyzed, and judged. But for once, it judged correctly. Tessa tried damage control. She posted a Notes app apology, the kind that screams PR panic. Something about miscommunication and unintentional hurt. She disabled comments. Then turned them back on. Then deleted the post, but it was too late. Her sponsors backed out. A podcast she was scheduled to guest on replaced her last minute. The empowerment brand she co-founded issued a statement distancing themselves from her. One post read, "She used Maya's trust to boost her own brand. That's not empowerment, that's exploitation." Tessa DM'd me that afternoon. "Talk to me. Please. This isn't who I am." I stared at the message, thought about all the times I'd told her, "This isn't me," while crying in her kitchen, and she'd told me to toughen up or reframe it for the narrative. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded her message to the same site I'd used for my story, adding one final screenshot. It simply read, "You don't get to decide the version of you I forgive." Later that evening, I received a call from an unknown number. It was a journalist from a digital magazine, one that focused on digital abuse, consent, and online feminism. She said, "Your story isn't just personal, Maya. It's systemic. Would you be willing to talk?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes. But I won't do it anonymously." She paused, surprised. "Are you sure? The backlash can be, I've already survived it. This is me reclaiming it." The article went live the next week, titled, "She Tried to Destroy Me Online, I Made the Internet See Who She Really Was." The photo was simple, me, backlit, holding my phone. Not a victim. Not a villain. Just someone who had stopped staying silent. The story trended for days, and through it all, Tessa disappeared from her accounts. No more motivational captions. No more curated girlboss content. Just silence. She was finally invisible, the way She once made me feel. The days after the article dropped were eerily quiet. For the first time in weeks, my phone wasn't vibrating with alerts. The storm had passed, but its aftermath was everywhere. Tessa's world shrank fast. Mutual friends who had once gushed about her brand vision now ghosted her. A few texted me privately, "I had no idea, I'm so sorry, I should have noticed." But I remembered how they'd laughed when she'd mocked me behind closed doors. How they'd smiled when she stole the spotlight. I didn't reply. Forgiveness wasn't owed. Especially not now that it was convenient. Her co-founder released a video, calm, collected, but clearly rehearsed. "We are devastated by the betrayal of values. We stand with Maya and all women who've been silenced." I watched it once, then closed the tab. That wasn't justice. That was survival. True justice was watching her name become unsearchable in her own empire. The pages she built, now redirected. The campaigns she led, now scrubbed. A digital erasure that mirrored what she tried to do to me. She emailed me, a long, rambling letter. She blamed pressure, fear, jealousy. Said she had built her identity around being the strong one, the untouchable one. That watching me grow had triggered something she hadn't confronted. She called it a mistake. I called it a choice. I didn't answer, because justice wasn't about confrontation. Justice was in my inbox full of support from strangers. It was in the young woman who DM'd me. "I've been terrified to speak up about my ex leaking my photos. Your story gave me the courage to start writing mine." It was in the silence where shame used to live inside me, now replaced by a calm defiance. One afternoon, I walked past the cafe Tessa and I used to meet in. She was sitting inside, alone, head down, sunglasses on. I paused outside the window. For 1 second, she looked up. Our eyes met. She didn't smile, didn't flinch, just stared, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not vengeance, just distance, the kind you feel when a chapter is over and you've already turned the page. A month later, I stood on the rooftop of my apartment building. Same view, same breeze, but everything inside me had changed. There had been no big comeback, no press tour, no public clapback, but I was whole again. I had started therapy the week after the article dropped. Not because of Tessa, but because I realized how long I'd made myself small to keep others comfortable. It wasn't just about the photos. It was about every moment I laughed off her comments. Every time I let a red flag pass as just her being blunt. Every instinct I buried. Now, I honored every one of those instincts like a survival skill. I'd begun writing again, something I hadn't done in years. Not for followers or clients, just for me. I wrote about boundaries, about digital safety, about what it means to be violated by someone who once called you sister. And people listened. An indie magazine asked to republish my story. A non-profit invited me to speak at their online summit on cyber harassment. I almost said no. The fear still clung to the edges of my confidence, but I said yes, and on that live stream, I told hundreds of women the same thing I'd needed to hear. You don't have to defend your right to privacy. You don't have to make it make sense to anyone. What happened to you wasn't your fault. And what you choose to do now, quietly heal or loudly fight, is your power, not their permission. That's what healing looked like, not erasing the pain, but choosing who gets to hold the pen moving forward. My apartment, the one I'd once wanted to escape, now felt like mine again. I redecorated, repainted, even moved my desk to face the window. Not to hide, but to see the world as it is. Sharp edges and all. I didn't block Tessa. I didn't need to. She no longer occupied the parts of me that mattered. She was a scar, one I could touch without flinching, and I had no intention of letting her reopen. My name is Maya, and I'm 31 years old. 3 months ago, someone I once called my best friend weaponized my trust, and for a moment, it felt like she'd destroyed everything. My privacy, my dignity, my voice. But here's what I know now: you can survive betrayal without becoming bitter. You can be humiliated and still hold your head high. You can lose people you thought were permanent, and still find your peace. No. One teaches you how to recover when the knife in your back comes with a familiar grip. When the person you confided in is the one who turns your pain into content. But healing didn't come in one big moment. It came in small ones, choosing not to retaliate with cruelty. Choosing silence when I could have gone loud. Choosing to reclaim, not just react. And the truth is, I didn't get justice so she would feel small. I got justice so I could feel whole. To anyone watching this who's been violated, silenced, or betrayed, you are not broken. You are not what they did to you. You are not the image they painted. You are what you rebuild from the ashes, and they don't get to touch that part. Let them underestimate you, let them think you stayed down, then rise, quietly, fiercely, on your own damn terms.